What's up? This is Noah DeFreitas with Noah Fitness, and I'm with my co-host, as always, Matt Berzicott. And for those of you who don't know Matt and I have been working together, and we've also been friends for the past 7 years. And he's the one who opened me up to the world of bodybuilding. And just a little bit of background about Matt. He's been competing since 2004. He's also been coaching clients for competitions since 2009. And I'm super excited to have him because his knowledge is second to none. So I want him as my co-host to answer your questions as detailed as possible to help you guys get to the next level. And why we're making these Q&As is truly just to help you guys. We fish in our own audience and grab questions from you guys so that we can answer your questions specifically to get you to the next level. Because truthfully, the biggest thing that we are missing is just the right answer for ourselves. And that's what was missing for me. And I know a lot of us, we want to be bodybuilders. We want to change our physiques. We may not want to compete, and we may want to compete, but the key thing is we're missing that piece of information that lets us get to that next level. And a lot of us, we give up just too early. And I was right on the brink of that. Right before I met Matt, Matt was kind of like my last hope, and he brought me all the way to stage. And that's what opened me up to the world of bodybuilding and really seeing what I was capable of. And it translated all the way into my life. So that's where my passion is here. And I'm grateful to have Matt. And really, this is a part 2 of a 2-part series here. And we're going over the biggest mistakes. And we first covered the biggest mistakes of going into a contest prep or cutting down. And now we're going to talk about kind of the opposite today. We're going to talk about the biggest mistakes of an off season. We're going to talk about the biggest mistakes of training and the biggest mistakes of chemical enhancement for those of us who are on the enhanced side or anybody who wants to know more information on that. But we're going to go into this one. It's definitely going to be juicy. But overall, if you have any questions, just give us them in the comments below, and we will answer your questions live. But with that, we'll go ahead and get started here. And Matt, are you ready to get rocking?
Yes, sir.
Sweet. All right, so we're going over biggest mistakes. We're not going to cover everything. These are huge topics. So Matt, I just want you to just think like what really just comes to the top of your mind on these. Doesn't have to be comprehensive, but whatever those things that just come to the top, like, yes, those are huge mistakes. That's what we'll go over. And we'll just kind of go one by one here. But the first question is, what would you say, since we talked about cutting last time, this is the opposite. What would you say the biggest mistakes are in an off season? And would you agree that an off season is mainly for developing more muscle? It wouldn't be like people are taking it off because there are people who hear the term off season and they're like, oh, just do nothing. And off season doesn't mean nothing. Is that right?
It can. I mean, if for some people, I mean, that it is necessary for someone to take a break sometimes completely and rest, but generally no. Yeah, it's definitely, I think off season is maybe the wrong word to use. You know, a lot of people will say, it's always chicks, you know, they're always like, it's improvement season, you know, not
I like that. That sounds better almost.
I know. I mean, that's, you know, that's probably a better way to think of it, you know, improving body parts, you know, accruing more muscle tissue. That's a better way to think of it versus off season, because like you said, people hear off season and it's like, well, yeah, I'm off. I'm not doing anything. And, you know, I wouldn't say I ever went that far, but I can hit a lot of good topics on this one because I've made all these mistakes too. But the biggest mistakes in the off season, I mean, you kind of already said it, is people they don't have a sense of urgency. They have no plan of action at all. They eat too much, they eat too little, they eat whatever they want. They can eat whatever they want and it's still too little. They can eat whatever they want and it's too much. So I guess we could kind of start with those. Those are the most general things I see, but
okay.
I think, yeah,
So,
the biggest problem I think is, oh, go ahead.
so it seems that the biggest thing is really just like not having a plan. So would you agree there is like
Yeah.
just really not being pointed?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
let's
The
go ahead and
biggest, you
start
could
there
sum all
then.
that up.
Is
Yeah. You could sum all that up. You could sum all that up by saying not having a plan at all.
okay. So then my question is what should people be thinking about? And again, when is an off season? Is it necessarily right after a show, or it would an off season also be something like you just cut down for some other purpose and now you're in some sort of not pointed zone. So it's kind of inherent that you get caught in something like that, I would say. So I guess my question to you would be is how do you get pointed? What's a good, what, maybe let's just define what you would think a purposeful off season would be.
Well, I would only use the term for competitors,
Okay.
obviously. If you're not a competitor, obviously you don't have, I mean, I guess you're kind of forever off season. But it could, yeah, it could be. And I wouldn't think of the term off season right after a show. I think that's its own time period in itself, which we've talked a little bit about in the rebound phase. I don't
Mhm.
consider that an off season. There's, people get off stage and it's like, they're like already posting, they're like, oh, 15 seconds into off season. Like,
Uh,
that's not off season yet. I think after the rebound phase is over, that couple months after a show, that's when an off season is. And I mean, the things you need to think about are basically, if you're a competitor, when is your next show? And then you can kind of plan out from there. That's when you're looking at the photos, you're analyzing your physique, you're seeing where the holes are, where the gaps are, what you need to improve on. And you sit down and you start drawing up a plan on how you're going to achieve a better look for next time.
so I have a question for
So,
you. What would
yeah.
you say comes first? And I know this is kind of multifaceted. Is it the show, or is it what you need to improve on? Then you do a show. Is there an ideal? Should you already know what shows you're hitting, or should you start thinking of what time do I need to improve these things to then look for a show, if that makes sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think you should go by how much time do you need to improve enough before you do another show, depending
Uh-huh.
on what level that is. You know, I mean, if you, God, there could be a million different scenarios to this, but that's why it's got to be tailored to the individual. But,
Mhm.
um, because I mean, let's say if you're a newbie and it was your first show, I mean, you could, depending on how it went, I mean, you could do a string of shows in a row before you plan an off season, and then it's just there's too many variables there to really discuss that. That's got
Gotcha.
to come down to the individual. But
Uh-huh. Perfect. So definitely creating the right plan on what you need to improve on, and then looking into, what shows, kind of align with that sort of time span. Does that kind of sound about right there? Cool.
yeah, yeah, analyze. It's just like if you were playing a sport and you're going to watch film and you need to figure out the corrections you need to make. You're doing the same thing. You're looking at your body, and then you kind of, if you're working with someone with experience, they can kind of give you an idea of how much time you need, and
Mhm.
also what kind of look you need to achieve to do better at whatever level you're at whatever show that is that you decide to choose next.
Okay.
So I think that was a great question by you. Is, do you just pick a show, or like what is the thought process into picking another show?
Mhm.
I mean, we can talk
Absolutely.
about we can talk about you and we can talk about what we're doing with you.
Yeah, let's
I
give
mean, just
them
for
an
the simple
idea. I think
fact.
that'll be perfect to just give an idea of like, what our off season is, why we're doing what we're doing, and that approach. So yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, so you did your show. Unfortunately, it was a bad turnout of competitors, which, we may see that for a little bit now. This obviously this year, maybe next year, and who knows how long. So, you had the idea of maybe hitting that show the next week, which I said we may as well. And then you told me kind of the logistics of it and how much money it would cost and all that. And after we weighed that out, we decided that didn't really make sense. And you had kind of wanted to kind of test the waters a little bit at maybe a national show and see where you were. And I'm totally game for that. And then you had mentioned that you kind of what about doing like the Arnold Amateur? And I thought that'd be a great idea. I think that your physique, just for the simple fact that, let's go to a show where we know there's going to be some people there.
Definitely.
That's kind of where we're at now with you. You haven't done a national show yet. And the Arnold Amateur, although it isn't a national show, it is still a very big show. The days of the national shows holding as much prestige as they used to, I guess, are kind of over because there's so many other shows that you can get pro cards at now for all of the other divisions except bodybuilding. So the allure of the national shows, specifically like the junior nationals. Like when I was younger, the junior nationals was a very prestigious show to win, and now like nobody does it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in bodybuilding, just because they don't give a pro card. That's another subject. But yeah, I mean, for you, it was a case of you're always in the mix at every show you've ever done,
Mm-hmm.
right? So let's kind of see where you stand on. You've kind of graduated to that next level now, and I said we can use this time. That show's not till March. I think we can make great improvements by January, by the time we start bringing you down again in weight. And, that's just made the most sense for you. So, me, myself, so I just came off of 2 major surgeries back to back. I haven't really done anything for 2 years. So, could I have rushed and done like the nationals or USAs this year and probably won? Yeah, probably, but I would have looked the same as I have in all my previous years in like 2018, 2017. And for someone that has repeatedly gotten second place, I just wanted to take the extra time so I can, basically build a pro caliber physique and show up to an amateur show. And I just want there to be no questions about it or no doubts about it. So that's why I decided to wait till next year. So everybody kind of has their own story. And that's, I guess, the point I want to make is depending on what your story is, you and your coach should talk and figure out what makes the most sense, instead of just hitting, arbitrary show after show.
Yeah. I think that's an awesome point. Really, this is one of those that kind of diving deeper into this question, you can quickly see how multifaceted it is to take this sort of next step of you might have done a show, then you're at a period called an off season where you're determining what the next steps are. So the considerations are, what's your past history? How did that go? What's your future goals and what do you need to do to get to those future goals? So that's really going to determine how this off season plan works. And the biggest mistake that Matt said was, not having a plan for this, because clearly time is such a valuable thing where you can be productive with this time. But if you don't have the right plan and the right strategy, you're not going to optimize the off season and getting to that next level. So the biggest mistake here is going to be not planning for that next step, not understanding what you need to do to get to that next step, when those next steps are, for example, what time shows are, and can you get to that next level with those shows. For my example, have a few months to try to improve to get to that next level. For Matt's example, he's coming off of surgeries. So he's taking a full year, taking that speculation to say that that's going to be optimal for him to get to that next level during this off season. So I think that's incredible, Matt. We'll leave it right there at that on off season. But if anybody,
I was going to add one.
Okay.
I was going to add one thing real quick. The other biggest mistake to not having a plan is, I think, this just the sense of urgency. People think it's in the off season, they have all this time, and they let like one day slip go by, and then they'll let 2 days go by where they're off plan, and then a week goes by, and then they get back on for a week. And it's like, if you add up all of the days where you were off plan, maybe you missed meals, maybe you ate things you weren't supposed to, maybe you missed training. All of that adds up immensely, because all of the people that I know that I know personally that I've watched make the biggest improvements extremely fast. Like we're talking about like Brett Wilkin, Nick Walker, Justin Compton was famous for how fast he rose to like the top of pro bodybuilding after he turned pro. It is all because it is there's no secrets. It's because their ability to not go off plan for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years in a row, whether it's off season or pre-contest, it doesn't matter to them. So that would be the biggest mistake, not having a plan and then not following it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's
because
humongous.
you feel like you have all this time and you really don't.
Anytime you look, just start calculating things. This is the stuff that got me going 100%. I could remember years of just saying I would compete, or I'm going to get shredded, whatever it is, get to that next level. And you just look back and you're like, oh my gosh, it's been 3 years, or it's been a year, or my off season's over. For example, I'm just looking at this off season right now. Currently, we have about 12 weeks. We're almost at the 4-week mark. We're already 1 month in here. I have 2 more months.
Exactly.
Next month's going to be a push. The following month's going to be a clean out, and then I'm back to prep. So I basically have 4 more weeks of pushing hard here. That's 4 workouts essentially if you work out once per week. I like to do that sense of urgency to say, how many chest days do I have? How many leg days? And if you break it down like that, you might have 12 leg days until your show, 12 workouts to get your legs to the next level. Think about that. So, if you're already down to 6 more leg days and you're not getting that development, you're wasting time. And I think it's nice to always plan that stuff out. And personally, if you guys need help on this, I say get a Google Calendar and map out all the weeks. What I have in mind, I have 12 weeks out, I have 8 weeks out, I have 6 weeks out, all on the calendar to understand where I need to go. Also, I do things like progression-based projections. So if I want to get to a certain weight in my lifting, and I know this is a little more outside the realm of bodybuilding, this is just how I work though, is I'll project all the way to what weights I need to get to. Like, I need to build I have a certain strength level I like to get to, and I project how strong I should be getting over these time each week. So I think that's stellar, Matt, is saying the importance of understanding your time and how valuable this stuff is. I mean, any prep, like we said, the standard, or wherever it came from, the 12-week prep, that essentially to a standard workout routine is 12 workouts per body part. So that makes it crazy. But any comments to that note, Matt, before we move on?
No, I mean, it's just I don't know why people have to stop thinking about it that way as, okay, now today I start prep. Well, what does that even mean? Like with you, we're basically going to roll. I don't know when your prep basically starts. We're just going to go by how you look, and then on a timeline, and do whatever it is we need to do at that time. It's not that we start. I mean, you're in prep now, we could say, you're always in prep. You're always in prep. Is the way you have to look at it.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say is that's the best way to look at it. If you're always game time, and sure, there's times where you might just need a little break here and there, but the guys
Yeah.
who, like you're saying, who perform at that top level, there's a clear reason why they're doing that. They're freaking machines.
Yeah.
So awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome point there. So
Yeah.
we'll go to the next topic here. This is also a gigantic topic, but we're going to move into training. So if you could just kind of give your what would be like the biggest red flag, or something that you see people doing the most, or something that you can save people from that's like maybe a trend right now. But what are the biggest mistakes that you see right now when it comes to people's trainings?
Like, where did all these weird like splits come from that I'm seeing now? Like, people are like trying to like, they'll do like shoulders and quads, and then like it's like the weirdest splits I've ever seen. Like, I don't know, like bicep, right calf, you know, like, like it's the, like, where are they coming, where are people, what happened, why are people feeling the need to deviate from, and then now it's like derogatory to call it a bro split,
Mm,
right? Like,
mhm.
these science people are referring to everything that we do as bodybuilders as bro splits, like that's like supposed to be a bad thing. And while I don't think that everybody in the world should follow a bro split,
Mhm.
if you're someone that is intermediate to advanced in training, there's kind of, and your key goal is, gaining muscle and molding your body, what, like, why wouldn't you follow a bro split? you
So
know
let's define a bro split then for everybody
a
who
bro
doesn't know the bro
split, like
split.
the typical, like, one body part a week, so a
Mhm.
chest day, a leg day, a back day, a shoulder day. People are referring to that as bro splits, and then now they're coming up with these, like I said, just these weird, ridiculous training splits that I don't know where they're getting them from.
So what would you
They're
say the
just
biggest negative is to having these crazy training splits? Like what is that doing to us?
you typically don't get people, like, I get what they're trying to do. It's like more volume or more frequency, less volume. I get it, because they're reading, like, a science journal says that a muscle starts shrinking or atrophying after 72 hours. Well, they didn't do a study on like a Dorian Yates type back workout. I'll guarantee you he's still recovering after 72 hours. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, they're just trying to defeat, or trying to do something different, I guess. But the biggest, you're just not getting enough volume or enough stimulation for someone that's an advanced lifter. You really have to dig deep and cause some trauma to that area to get it to respond. And I don't know that, or it can be the opposite, and people are causing that trauma to the area and they're not recovering, and they're just keep
Mhm.
digging themselves in a hole. So that's just one weird thing. I don't think that's the biggest mistake. That just came to my mind when you mentioned like stuff I'm seeing nowadays. I'm just
Yep.
seeing that more and more. People send me their training splits, and it's just like fucking weird. Um, I think the biggest mistake, people just don't know. They kind of just don't know even what exercises work for them. I'm big on
Mm.
not too much exercise variety. I'm big on going by feel, and I don't feel like any certain movements are irreplaceable. Like, when I say that, I mean, just because most people say that like a barbell squat is the king of all movements, don't feel that you have to do that. If your goal is to grow big quads and you don't feel squats in your quads, you don't have to do them.
Mhm.
And I'm sure there's a lot of people that don't agree with me on that, but I don't really care. It's, I don't feel like, pick movements that work well for you
Mhm.
biomechanically,
Yep.
just go by feel. There's that. So people don't even take the time to kind of figure that out.
I want to make a
And
quick
then they,
point on that
yeah,
there.
yeah,
So I think that's an awesome point. And the key to understand what Matt's trying to say here is basically a lot of us, we feel stuck if we can't do a certain exercise, and we think that's going to limit us. And that's kind of the point of the show is a lot of us, we feel stuck, therefore we can't do it. Like if I can't squat heavy, or if I can't deadlift without hurting my back, if I can't bench without hurting my shoulders, that's it. It's over. But you have to look deeper than that and start to study people. And I always say any limitation that you have, study somebody who had it worse than you or the same limitation, and it worked for them. For example, Dorian Yates, he had to give up free bar squats at some point in his
yeah,
career, and he
yeah.
has a crazy pair of legs. So he used more Smith machine, he used more hack squat, more leg press, and he had crazy legs because of it. There are plenty of people who do not. Matt, I don't think you deadlift, do you?
No. Well, I do. I do like RDLs for hamstrings, but I don't do
Okay.
conventional. I don't do
Yep. So,
conventional deadlifts from the floor.
so Matt has a ridiculous back. He's not deadlifting. So
Yeah.
you don't need to necessarily have these. But Matt, I want to ask you this question. The way I think about it is like these are the fundamentals. So if you can do them, they will essentially, it's designed to help you get there. That's the basics. That's the foundation. It's like saying, you have your free throw, your layup, and your three-pointer in basketball. Sure, you might not be good at one of those. You can figure out what works. But if you get great at those, you're going to be a great basketball player. So sure, if you can squat, if you can deadlift, if you can bench press, that's great. It's really going to develop your physique. But if you can't, that doesn't mean that you cannot develop your physique. Does that sound about right?
Oh, 1,000,000%.
Perfect.
That's like when the average person asks me like, how much do you bench? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't bench. And their head
Uh-huh.
explodes. Their head explodes. And they're like, well, what do you do then? It's like
Uh-huh.
that mentality. Or you talk to the 32-year-old guy that he's like, oh, well, I don't do legs because my knees hurt because I can't squat. Well, I guarantee you I could put you through a leg workout that doesn't bother your knees and we can make this happen. It's just people defeat themselves before they even try to get started. There's a way around everything
Yep.
if you want it, if you want it bad enough.
We talked about Dave Pusinella last time, right?
Yeah.
He actually gave me a quote that changed my life. He said, "The art of bodybuilding is working around injuries." I mean, sure, that might not be 100% true, but it opened my mind because I would like say hurt my shoulder or I'd hurt my elbow. And I was like, well, I'm out of the gym. That sucks.
Yeah.
But after he said that, I was like, how do I work around this? How do I actually, and I actually challenged myself to say, whatever I injure, I'm going to try to come out better. I'm going to actually try to make that muscle better. So I injured my tricep bad. And I was like, I was pissed. So I said, I'm going to try to make my tricep the best it's ever been while it's injured. So I found all these movements that had zero pain.
That you could do.
Yeah, I didn't do the stupid thing that most people do and work through the pain, and then you're just in a worse position. But you find things that work with zero pain. And literally, I was doing like partial tricep extensions, and I had the best tricep pump of my life every time.
Yeah.
You had to focus so much on not injuring yourself
Yeah.
that you're just digging into all the fibers. And I think that's kind of to your point there is finding what works is how you optimize your physique. That's how you, and I'm kind of the opposite of Matt in a little bit of ways, which is great because we can contrast these things. Is I found that my body works really well with the fundamentals. I can just really focus on those. And I'm one of the rare people, sure, I've been injured before, but I found ways to really maximize those exercises without getting injured, knock on wood for now. But they've really worked for me. And Matt, to a kind of the opposite degree, he's found a lot of things that have helped him. And of course, Matt's at a ridiculously higher level. I'm not benching 4 or 5 plates just yet, but things at that super high level that he can't do anymore, but is getting results beyond what he got doing those fundamental things. So that's kind of examples on both ends of the coins there.
Yeah, I mean and that's, well, there's one example. There's maybe you can't do a certain exercise because it causes pain, but I'm talking about too, what I was talking about originally is maybe there's an exercise that you just don't feel. Like if I barbell squat, I just feel it in my lower back. It doesn't work. I don't feel it in my quads because, um, and these are things that I might be able to fix. Maybe it might be lack of, oftentimes it's like if people squat and they have a hard time and they feel it in their lower back because they're leaning forward too much, it's usually because they lack ankle mobility, which there's just not a lot you can do other than prop your heels up. So I've found, I mean, there's just ways that you can tweak. There's different variations of the basic movements. So like if I do squat, I need to use, I still squat, but I found if I use a safety bar and prop my heels up on a platform, it works wonderfully. So you don't know, there's so many people that I've helped in person where they're like, I can't do this certain exercise because it hurts or whatever. And there's a different variation of that exercise or one little tweak that you need to make to figure it out, to feel it in the target
Mhm.
area,
I think that's a great point on feel. And you brought up the kind of the two parts of that is you can, of course, kind of maximize the movement pattern of that exercise or whatever you need for your biomechanics to feel better. But also there might be an exercise that just, feels better. So how important is feeling the exercise? And we're going to kind of have to disclude people who are really new because you're just not going to have the neural
yeah, they
connections and
don't have,
yeah, so
yeah.
that's a different thing. But like for people who are advanced, like if one exercise really feels better but it's not conventional, what would you kind of recommend? Is going towards exercises that feel kind of, you can feel them more?
Well, to a certain extent, because you can't just do, if that were the case. And did you watch the guy that was just on Dave Palumbo on Palumbo's live with or whatever, that he's like a huge biomechanics guy that basically
No.
said you need to watch it because he said, I mean, I don't agree with everything he said, obviously, but it's an interesting way of thinking. He basically said like for quads, all you need to do is leg extensions or sissy squats. He said that like doing leg press, hack squat, legs. He said that's all redundant.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
okay, now I would say so just think of this. So he's saying that you can build as big of quads just doing leg extensions as you would doing all those things. I mean, there's no fucking way. Like, so you
Uh-huh.
have to take things that everybody says with a grain of salt. So
Mm.
to my point, you go by feel to a certain extent.
Uh-huh.
If that were the case, you know what I'm saying? Because like if that were true, then all you would do is leg extensions for or isolation movements for every body part because those cause the most amount of I guess stimulation to that area you're trying to
Hmm.
get. So again, it's a fine line, but with that being said, I think feel is extremely important. And when we say an exercise feels good, what I mean by that is I don't mean that it's comfortable. I mean that you do the exercise and you are feeling it where you want to feel it in the
Mm.
whatever the target area is. So does that make sense?
Oh, 100% is feeling it in the muscle. Like for example, people will bench press and they're like, I can't get my chest to grow, and they only feel bench in their triceps and their front delt. And they've
Yeah.
never been sore. Of course, soreness is not any sort of like real factor, the most important factor of muscle growth, but you should feel it in that area, in the muscle fibers, whether it be, you can't really define what a feel is, but whether it be a pump or you're feeling that area actually be worked. Is that
Yeah.
what you're kind of talking about?
Yeah, and some exercises we can get even deeper here. some exercises, I feel like you don't really feel them while you're doing it. But when you get off of it, like let's say if you're doing a set of like really heavy hack squats, I don't particularly feel while I'm doing it, I don't feel like it's just really hard. I don't really feel it while I'm doing it. But when you stop doing it and you get up, your quads, are exploding. So there's also different definitions of feel. And this is all stuff that you just don't, you don't figure this out until you train, with a lot of experience.
100%. These are the things also that like science is great, but like things like feel, how can you really study these things? And this is where we're really learning the art is super important. So just like that, that's one of those kind of intangibles. And I would agree with you. The exercise that you feel kind of like after that, like explosion pump feel, honestly, I've always felt that that's the sweet spot. Like when you feel your muscles just blow up after that set, it's like that was it.
Yeah, if you're not getting that feeling after an exercise, it's probably not a really good exercise for you.
Or you just don't have enough muscle mass. Would that be a good argument?
We're excluding new people. New people just need to focus on gaining strength at everything. And they need to keep their movement selection, I think, even smaller, basically the same things every week for a year straight, at least.
So I want to make a point to our audience here. When bodybuilders talk about time frames, this is the truth of stuff. We keep thinking, especially when it comes to muscle gain and strength gain, Matt just said 12 months. He said a year. Some of the top guys like Dorian Yates, he'll say, try a workout program for 11 months and then see how it worked. It's truly just a testament to the long-term nature of this stuff, is where a lot of us, and maybe I'll ask you this, Matt, is program hopping, like where you kind of like changing methodologies, like we fell into this stuff back in the day when you'd get the new copy of Flex magazine or Muscular Development, you just hop into the next program. So what would you say about that? Is program hopping, and let me just define that. It's not necessarily like, I guess so. It's not necessarily just like changing up exercise, but it's changing up philosophies. Basically,
philosophies,
every time you find the newest exercise or routine. So Matt, would you say program hopping is a big mistake in training?
I think that's if you're program hopping, you're not improving.
that hardcore. That's awesome you said that.
Yeah, people that are program hopping probably aren't changing much. There was something else I was going to say that you made me think of, and I can't remember what it was now.
Is it about the magazines?
No, but I do miss those days. Remember, you had the subscription, and you'd wait all month, and I would have every page memorized. Like
even the ads.
You read the same thing for a month. Even the ads, yeah, man, I miss those days. But
seriously,
anyways, I think a couple other mistakes I want to touch on that we've already talked about quite a bit are people's execution of
Uh-oh.
You're back.
All right. Let's see. Oh, I guess we're still recording. I wonder if this pieces it together. But Matt, basically where we got cut off
What's the last thing you just said? Last thing you heard me say?
Execution.
Oh, okay. So you need to learn how to execute the movements in the best way possible for you. And that's another point. Like you see, like personal trainers in a gym that say you have to do a certain exercise a certain way. It needs to look like this. That may not always be the case. You know, you can make. I'm always making little adjustments to movements that I feel are improvements for me in the execution phase of things. So, you know, kind of figuring those things out. So, you know, you got to figure out what movement patterns work well for you. You figure out your own way to execute those movement patterns. And then you got to figure out how, you know, what intensity really is. And then you got to figure out like kind of the sweet spot for how far, you know, we've talked about this, how far do you go into failure and how many sets do you do that for? How many sets do you do in a workout? I've been getting a lot of those questions lately.
Gotcha. And I want to make a quick point on this, Matt, because this is a tremendous topic here where we're not necessarily maybe the form that's textbook is necessarily the best form for you. Yep.
Yeah.
One of the big ones and why you don't see squat videos ever, because the squat Nazis will chew you to pieces. But I've studied the squat form of the people with the biggest legs in the world, X only Tom Platz, um, rarely go ass to grass. They're like quarter squatters. You're looking at Sean Roden. You're looking at Phil Heath. You're looking at Jay Cutler. All these people did not go ass to grass on squats.
They leg press that way too, most of them.
Yeah. Branch Warren, his legs are out of this world. He leg presses 4-inch leg press. You know, he's just barely pushing the weight, you know, a few inches, and his legs are like tree trunks. So
Yeah.
on that point, Matt, so is that an example of kind of what you're talking about? Is you have to figure out what's really going to
That's a
maximally.
perfect example. Yeah. There, do you remember Jason Huh? HUH, Jason Huh? He owns Steel
Yep.
Supplements now.
Hmm.
People used to rip him to shreds for his training videos because he would do partial reps on everything.
Yep.
And I understood what he was doing. He's all about, there is a thing called constant tension and just keeping tension where on the muscle of, you know, during a certain movement. During movements when you use a full range of motion, and you know, I'm going to advocate using a full range of motion most times for most people. But once you do get an idea of like what really works for you, there's a lot of movements that I don't use a full range of motion on that I feel like it's more beneficial that way. And that's how he trained everything. And he was massive.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot to constant tension that these science nerds, you know, I don't know how they can really argue it when they're super small and we're super, you know, and like they're really gonna bash Branch Warren's training style. Like, I mean, the guy, I mean, they think he would have been bigger if he would have trained their way. I don't think so.
Uh-huh. I totally agree there. And this is where the answer always is somewhere in between. Like
He
people
always.
just have to grasp that. You get the major
Yeah.
science community and they're hell bent because of course when you have concrete statistics behind something, it makes sense to grasp that. However, if you have people doing some of the opposite of what's happening and are getting triple the results, you can't argue that the science is missing pieces in that realm as well. So you have to always land somewhere in between for people who are looking at just science. You know, there's a whole
Yeah.
reason why bodybuilders have this whole philosophy and why we need people like Matt who've been in the industry so long that know things that just we don't know the exact science of yet. You know, why science is saying perfect form, you know, full range of motion, you will target all the muscle, but there's much more dynamic to that because, you know, you might be wanting to target only a certain range and you might have an advantageous position to really target those muscle fibers at a different range. It's all, you know, your goal dependent situation. So I think that's an incredible topic that you don't necessarily have to do, you know, the textbook form. It's about finding what execution style works best to stimulate the muscle according to your goal. Does that sound
Yeah.
about right? Right
Yeah.
there.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And the
Cool.
only way to figure that out is to is to do it for years and years and years. You know,
Yep. Yeah.
it's just interesting looking at all the guys. You know, you can think of any of the top bodybuilders ever and kind of how they trained. It's really interesting. No two people were really the exact same.
It's
You know,
so true. It's everybody has their own unique style, and I think that was the biggest thing I learned. Is I thought, and this could be geez, we're just rolling off these mistakes. This could be one of my biggest mistakes. Is all I did was emulate the
Mm,
professionals. What would you say
yeah.
about that? Do you think that's a mistake to emulate? If I, just go in and start training like Ronnie Coleman, will I get those results? Just
Dude,
or do you?
the
Yeah, what's
first time, hey, what did you, okay. So I grew up just a huge form guy. I had a personal training certificate. I'm 19 years old. Or I was 18 years old. Thought I knew everything, right? I'm NASM certified. Like I know all this shit. And then I pop in Ronnie Coleman, The Unbelievable. I remember I bought it off the internet, like AOL dial up. The VCR tape comes to my house and I'm like, oh my God, I pop it in. And because this was before YouTube, right? None of this
uh,
shit existed.
uh,
I've never seen Ronnie Coleman train. And then I see him train and doing like bent over rows that I consider just out of this world sloppy, just throwing weight around. And I sat there, I shit you not, for like 2 hours through the whole thing, just like, like the biggest guy in the world is doing everything wrong,
uh-huh.
of what I thought. So I don't know that it's necessarily wrong to emulate people at first. You kind of almost have to because you don't even have a mind of your own yet. You don't have philosophies of your own yet.
Yep.
I don't think it's a bad thing to emulate. I mean, it's probably a bad thing to emulate like the genetic elite people,
Mhm.
like Ronnie. Ronnie probably could have trained anyway. You hear people say that he probably could have trained any way he wanted to, and he probably looked the same. Maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't, but you know, I don't necessarily think it's a horrible idea, but I think you need to pay attention to if it like really works or not. And then as you start gaining that, that data and that knowledge, then over the years, you can start to figure out what works for you and what doesn't.
Gotcha. And that goes to, I don't know who said this. I keep thinking it's like Bruce Lee or something, but basically he's saying something to the lines of master the fundamentals first and then make it your own. So kind of
Yeah.
like that's the
Yeah.
progression is you have to have a base of training that you master and then at that point make it your own. So I think that's a stellar point there.
Well,
But
you better believe after I watched that, I wasn't afraid to be a little looser on certain movements and throw some weight around.
yep.
I'm not saying I copied Ronnie Coleman, but it's definitely good to have your way of thinking challenged. And then how can I implement pieces of what he's doing into what I'm doing to make what I'm doing better?
Absolutely. There, geez, this is going to spin off into a million topics, but I just want to do one last topic here, and
Yeah.
we'll save the chemical enhancement for next time. But
Okay.
because that's a giant topic there, but we'll just do
Yeah.
here on training. But the last mistake I want to talk about, and I just want to know kind of where you stand on this. How important is getting stronger in the gym?
I think it's extremely important your first 5 to 10 years.
Okay. And are there actual, like, would you say, like, if somebody's saying, like, man, like, I can't gain any muscle, and like, what I often see is that we kind of, unless you're a genetic freak, like, I've seen people who bench 225 and have a great chest, and I'm just using bench as the classic example. However, there are a lot of people who do bench, say 225 and have crappy chests. But like, say you get into like 315 or 365 or whatever, or closer to 400, typically 9 out of 10 of those guys have great chests. So
Yeah.
something I
Okay.
kind of tell people is like, there's a certain level to where you can't like use your genetics. And this is kind of, some of the reason for why I do this show is to tell people like you're kind of missing the boat if you're not getting to some decent level of strength. Like I tell people,
Oh God, I love where you're going here. You got me pumped up.
okay, get in there.
This is okay. Let me in. I tell people the exact same thing, that you need to get to the point where you can 4-plate everything. Okay. So for reps, and when I say reps, I'm talking 6+. So if you're benching 4 plates plus, if you're squatting 4 plates for 6+, if you're deadlifting 4 plates for 6+, chances are you're going to be pretty big.
That
right?
simple. Yep.
So until you hit that point, you're not strong enough yet. So now my entire philosophy on training is different. I don't do those things. I don't squat more than 315 generally anymore, 365. I don't bench press anymore. But I did get to a point where I was benching 5 plates. I was squatting 5 plates. I was deadlifting 5 plates. Okay. Once you hit that, I mean, I had a amazing foundation that you can then spin off of and kind of change your philosophies and go into more of a preservation mode. But it's, progressive overload doesn't last forever. And there's different ways to keep, improving your physique without getting stronger. Like what was Ronnie Coleman going to do to get bigger after he was deadlifting 800? Like, is he supposed to deadlift 1,000 for 10 reps? Like, there's just certain things that are it's just not humanly possible to do. And, but I think that's a great way to put it for if you're talking to a dude that thinks that wants to get big. Just the 4-plate rule, is a pretty solid place. It's like, come back and talk to me when you can do 4 plates on everything for 6+ reps. And then we can talk about switching things up,
I'm so happy you said that. That's awesome, because that's literally what I say as well. And for those of you guys listening, some people get their feathers ruffled when they hear these numbers that they feel like they could never get in a lifetime or without chemical enhancement. It's not about the numbers per se, it's the concept. You have to understand that concept is, sure, it might not be 4, it might be 3.5, but you're looking at some median around those numbers. And I see it time and time again too. We're just cutting ourselves short. If you're only benching 185 pounds and you're complaining that you don't have a good chest, you're pretty far off from 4 plates.
You're pretty far off.
So that's what you have to start thinking.
So keep in mind,
about.
What I'm talking about, guys that tell me they want to be a pro bodybuilder. But at the same time, if you're a guy that doesn't even want to compete, don't let that defeat you and just throw in the towel. If you want, you could apply that same rule, but maybe just a little bit less. Maybe it's 3 plates for you. Don't limit yourself. Maybe it is still 4 plates for you. I don't know, but don't say, well, my goal isn't to be a pro bodybuilder, so I'm only going to bench 135, ever. Don't sandbag it, because, that's not your goal.
And I often see that we are so short on it. I think the biggest, I would say, if I could just give one piece of advice about bodybuilding, is so many of us, our expectation is just not even close to the level that you have to be at with anything. We're talking about training right now. You can apply it to diet. You can apply it to consistency. We're honestly just not at that level of how truly hardcore you have to get into this stuff. Like I find people saying, I don't want to look big, but they don't understand. They're not going to look big at twice the strength. If they double their strength, they're still not going to look big. So then it's the thought, it's like, well, shoot, like if you do twice of what you're already doing, you're still not even going to be close. And I'm not saying that to bash anything. I'm just trying to expand everybody's mind here. You might see me deadlifting 600-700 pounds, 675. And like the only reason I'm doing that is because like I mean, of course we can get to that advanced stuff that Matt's talking about, but just keeping it simple, I have to lift heavier weight to get bigger. So that's why I'm doing heavier things. And I'm not even close to Matt's size.
Well,
So
you're still, yeah, I can't. I saw you deadlift 675. That was super impressive. I can probably deadlift. If I'm being honest, if I went in to see how much I could 1 rep max deadlift right now, probably, I bet I could still do 500, even though I don't do them. But, yeah, I would, I outweigh you by 60 pounds, and like, it doesn't make a ton of sense, but it does. Like, that's our whole point is there's so much that goes into it, but you're still kind of at that point in your training life where you're probably still going to be able to, because what year did you start training, like really training?
Oh man, I've been training forever, man. Since like 13.
No, but
Like train.
like really training though?
Oh yeah, I've been
Really?
training. Oh yeah. It's
Oh,
really
well,
the
then,
thing
yeah,
that I was
then
missing
okay, I
is
didn't know
the
that. I didn't think you started till like 2010 for some reason.
no, I started forever ago. I was
Oh,
all
okay.
into pushing it. It was really the food aspect, of course. Just developing into a more mature individual that clearly helped. But yeah, I've been training hard for a long time. And there's another thing too. Like I was consistent, but I wasn't consistently progressing. And this is a big thing that I'd like to share with everybody too. Is Matt consistently progressed for like his whole career. Like he didn't have like, I'm sure he had a little bit of back and forth, but he's blowing through things and not coming back. Whereas most people, they might get to 315, have like, you just kind of hang around there and be in stagnate. That kind of separates the true advanced from, the normal, and even the people who are struggling right now is compounding off of that, always pushing to the next level. Like I'm sure, Matt, you were eating more and getting more focused every single time you didn't hit these things, where a lot of us, and it's a mindset thing like we talked about, is we just don't know. We don't know really where we need to get to. I don't know how you kind of figured that out, like get to 4 plates and stuff like that, because a lot of us were like, we're cutting ourselves short. So I guess how did you like get to push yourself and know you were in, I don't want to use the rah-rah term, but the term is worthy, worthy of going for those things, or like how did you have that vision?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm probably the wrong person to ask because I benched. I mean, I could 4 plate everything in like my senior year of high school.
That's insane. So
So, and I was natural and I was 180, 185 pounds.
whoa.
But I guess, that wasn't for six. I could 1 rep max 405 on bench, my senior year. Cause I remember that was the school record. I could squat it for, I can't remember how many reps, maybe like 5. And I could deadlift it for maybe like 5. So I don't know. I just had that mindset where it was like, oh, like you think you're strong, watch this, like I don't know. I just had that in me.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I just feel like I don't know how to teach. I don't know how to teach that to somebody. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't
there's a
know.
certain innate quality to
Well,
that.
I mean, you could answer it better because you weren't like that. So, and now
Yeah.
you're deadlifting 700 pounds almost. So, I mean, that's 700 pound. A 700-pound deadlift is an elite. We're talking. I mean, 700 pounds on any lift is like an elite level lift. So
Uh-huh.
maybe you could answer it better.
Yeah, this is an awesome contrast to kind of like somebody who has a natural mindset for this to somebody who had to develop it. And the best advice I could give is to do exactly what we talked about here. I basically looked at the average strength of the people I wanted to look like and truly saw it, not their Instagram, isolation exercise, but in the trenches when they were developing their foundation, what were they lifting? And it always came down to those same numbers. Like, you can even talk about arguably or not, like Mike O'Haron, says he's natural. This dude was like squatting 5 plates in high school. Like he was 275 in high school. So when you start to wrap your mind around these numbers, even if you don't want to be say a bodybuilder, full blown bodybuilder size, or a men's physique, or whatever it is for you, look at the average strengths of these people and you'll be blown away. It's way higher than you would expect, just way higher.
Yeah.
Matt, your rule I think is perfect. 4-plate everything if you want to develop, substantial muscle, and don't take, that verbatim. It might be 3 plates for you right now, but get up into those numbers before you count yourself out of the game. Because truly, my body did not hit that like next level of growth until I finally pushed past these things. I was in the 3-plate bench arena. I was in the 4-plate plus squat arena. I was in the 5-6-plate deadlift arena, and my body was way different. And it really wasn't much different before that. And I think there's kind of a threshold to these things, is where it might be higher for somebody who's less genetically inclined, and lower for the other person who there's people who develop more muscle mass with less strength. But just generally, get into those territories before you count yourself out, and look at what people are doing. What is your favorite physique star? What is he lifting? What's your favorite bodybuilder lifting? And generally, it's going to be in these higher levels. And if you need help getting there, this is where you reach out to one of us or somebody who's been there. But and they'll give you the process on how to get there. And it's a combination of everything. It's if it's just like I tell my students, getting stronger in the gym is not pushing harder. You don't push harder. We all push hard. So that's not the answer. It's not like I just learned how to push harder in the gym. You learn how to eat right and recover right. And then the same amount of pushing in the gym, you're now going to get stronger. So you have to have that synergy of getting to that goal. So, we've set the standard here on where you need to get to. And the next is creating that plan, that synergy to get to that goal. And it's not just working harder. You have to have the full plan.
Yeah, bodybuilding is not, I always tell people this too. Being the best bodybuilder or building the best physique is not always who trains the hardest or who diets the hardest. It's who does things the smartest.
Mm-hmm. I would
Because if it was
agree.
who trained the hardest, it would be every set to failure, 100 sets per workout, 8 hours of training a day. And, if it, diet wise, if it was who dieted the hardest, it would be who could eat, protein and veggies for, 74 weeks straight, and it's not how it works. So,
mm-hmm. And I like to say is everybody works hard. We get so proud about working hard. Sure, that's an issue to some degree, but often what I see is we get proud about we're working hard, but we're not comprehensively working. And it doesn't even have to. If you work hard comprehensively, you're going to get crazy results. But often we work really hard and we forget everything else. And working hard in the gym, I like to say is everybody's baseline. I don't know. Like my grandma goes to the gym and kicks butt.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I might disagree with you on this one a little bit, because I feel like most people that are not competitors, or even a lot of competitors too that aren't at a high level yet, they are not working hard in the gym. They think they are, but I'll use a couple examples from here and back home. I won't mention their names, and I hope they don't watch this, but they're big dudes. Like they're legit big dudes. One of them is someone that everybody is deathly afraid of. Like he's a fighter and he is extremely tough. Like I wouldn't fight him. They would try to train with me, and I'm not the hardest training person out there. I'm not shy about that. I don't do anything crazy, but whenever it came to leg day, they both did it one time with me, and they didn't finish the workout. They didn't finish the workout, and then they never did it. They never came back. And these are two both big dudes that, one of them is, a feared individual, and they couldn't handle leg day. So I don't know, man. I think a lot of people, there's another level to the gym rat. There's a big difference between pro bodybuilding training and gym rat training.
100%. That's an amazing point there, because when you do get to that higher level, a lot of the times there is that hard work component. I guess what I was kind of referring to is you always see, like, say somebody when they're benching, they're clearly giving it their all on that set of bench. Their forms all jacked up, trying to just squeeze one rep out of there. And I say, just going all out like that, like, clearly isn't going to bring your bench up more.
Yeah.
You now need to go beyond pushing your hardest on an exercise. But to the point you're talking about is saying somebody who's at a certain level of development, and maybe they've been going through the motions, or they really just haven't been pushing their body to get that next level of stimulus. So it completely depends on what end of the spectrum you're at. So I guess I'm talking to more of the kind of beginner. Is you need to have the synergy of everything in place. If you want to increase your bench, it's typically going to be because you're missing things besides, you're pushing hard on the bench, but you're missing things like rest and in nutrition. But to Matt, to your point, you're saying you have these giant dudes who are trying to get their body to the next level, but they're cutting themselves off super short because, like, you just did a leg day with them and they didn't come back.
Well, not only they didn't complete, they quit halfway through.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
You ever hear the story?
And like I said,
you ever hear the story of, Dorian Yates says it. It was the, what is it? Is it NABA out there in the UK? Is that what the organization is?
Well, there's NABA that's overseas. Yeah.
Okay. I think
That's
it
one
was
of them.
the national champion, the NABA national champion.
So it's probably the universe. Like NABA is Mr. Universe.
Okay, so I believe it was a Mr. Universe, and he trained with Dorian Yates once, and he said, "Show me what it takes to have a champion legs like you do." And it was so hardcore. He said, he said, "Show me what it takes to be Mr. Olympia." And he said, "I'm not going for it." After he trained with him, he was done. I couldn't believe it.
Dude,
so I'm gonna have to find that somewhere and send it to you. But he said,
well, that was
I'm
like
not gonna do
Dorian. Dorian took in Chris Cormier, at the end of Chris's career, and he annihilated him. And Chris Cormier was he trained hard. He was known for how hard he trained. He was known for how hard he trained and how hard he partied. But, there's always somebody that's on another level of intensity than you. I don't know that anybody was above Dorian, but it's just, it just goes to show, even the guys that do train really hard, they go train with someone like Dorian, and it's like there's a whole nother level there.
100%.
I wouldn't train. I wouldn't do it. I don't think. Would you?
No, I don't know way. It would be a nightmare. It would be a nightmare. It'd be a nightmare. It's something, so one thing, we can go forever on freaking training. One thing is, and I want, this is kind of something that can lead into a bunch of stuff, but basically I'm going to say is you can't, and this is the point of saying, like, say we want to go train with Dorian. If we might not know, but we know that Dorian's training is much more intense than our training right now. So it's not advantageous to go from, say, like an 8 out of 10 to a 25 out of 10. That's, you want to clearly scale your way up there. So that's why Matt and I, we're not wusses. We just know that there would be no point. We would just be throwing up and not be able to walk and maybe
exactly. It would have to be at a time like after I'm down in Florida training with Matt and Nick for like a few months straight, and my body's more conditioned to, super high intensity training. Mm-hmm. And I'm in a little bit better shape. Like when you're in prep, don't you feel like you can train a lot harder? And it might just be more so because your stomach's empty all the time. In the off season, I feel like it's doing super, super intense workouts, I always get nauseous.
Yeah.
But when you're deep in a prep and you're doing a lot of cardio, you're just generally, you're lighter, you just feel better. You can really push workouts and you're kind of unfazed. You're kind of, you're kind of numb.
Yep.
It has to be at a time like that.
Oh, 100%. That would be it. You'd have to be just peak physical condition for one of those freaking workouts. All right. So for those who don't know, and we'll kind of end on this little thing here, but like Dorian Yates was one of the most muscular and conditioned guys. He really set the standard for condition and muscularity. I think he put like 20 pounds on the average stage weight. But he could only train 4 days a week because of how hard he trained. Like that is a testament to like, if you're training that hard that you need to, recover with only a 4-day split, it was unheard of. Like that's still kind of unheard of. There's nobody that has a 4-day split in the pro arena right now, right? That 4 days per week.
No.
No,
that I know of.
No, yeah, right. Yeah. So it's still unheard of. So that's kind of the testament to the level of how hard this guy trained. He literally said, I couldn't do another leg day until the next week.
Do you think Ronnie trained as hard as Dorian or no? Watching him.
So I think I
think Ronnie was stronger. I think Ronnie could lift more weight, but I don't think he trained harder.
Yep. I think the exact same thing. There's a certain difference between like lifting heavy load, but to how much you actually like tear down that muscle tissue and stimulate the muscle.
Yeah, Dorian could take a set deeper into failure than anybody.
Well, let me ask you, how about Tom Platz?
Well, yeah, Tom Platz is up there too.
I almost argue it because Tom Platz, have you watched a set? It's like you're seeing somebody get murdered.
He looks like a demon.
Yeah, I've never seen anything.
He would squat, what was it? Was it 225? He would squat for like 10 minutes straight or something.
Yeah. I don't know what the number is. But his time under tension.
Have you seen him do leg extensions?
Yep, that's what I'm referring to. Or side laterals.
Yeah.
Like, dear God.
Because when he does leg extensions, he's like a possessed animal.
Oh yeah, that's where I was questioning. I'm like, I think he's the king of intensity. Like, I think he's the actual king.
He might be actually. You might be right.
He's the one guy. That's another guy I would never train with. It would not be good.
No.
In his squat form, every squat's a front squat. Doesn't matter what it is, it's a front squat. If it's on his back, it's a front squat. The most ridiculously straight up and down squat with 5 plates. It's no wonder that dude has
the sissy squats he would do on the hack squat.
Oh my gosh, rolling up onto the toes.
Yeah, damn. So. But anybody that hasn't seen Dorian Yates' Blood and Guts needs to watch it. I've definitely watched it more than any other movie in my life.
That's awesome.
But he did have the advantage of having Leroy Davis scream at him every set.
That's better than any anabolics.
Which can be very helpful.
Is a Leroy Davis. I'd pay any amount for a Leroy.
Leroy Davis was very anabolic. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, seriously. So I think that kind of brings it to a good spot here. We had some fun topics about some of our idols growing up, but to that point is you can really watch these pros to see their level of intensity, to know if you're kind of up there. I think that's a great foundation, like we talked about. Establish that foundation and then make it your own once you've mastered it. But at that point, Matt, do you have any final comments that you'd like to say before we end this call today?
No, just be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. Are you really working hard, or do you just tell yourself you're working hard?
And that doesn't just apply to the gym. That applies to your entire plan. So are you working 100% hard on the nutrition side?
That's my motto now that I'm, not wasting time anymore. Unfortunately for me, I wasted a lot of my younger years because I thought I had all this time, and before you know it, you're 35 with a lot of injuries and you don't have a lot of time left. And I'm trying to execute and make up for lost time. And I guess that's the big message I want to get across to people. Everybody, that all the younger guys I help now, I tell them that, like, hey, if you're really all in on this, don't feel like you have a lot of time, because before you know it, well, for one, it can end in an instant. For two, before you know it, you're 35 years old, and you still haven't gotten to where you've got, wanted to get to because of whatever reason. Doesn't really matter. That's the point I'm trying to get across. It doesn't even matter. Just do what you're supposed to do. That's, I'm on the do more train.
Yep. And I 100% agree with that. I don't know where it came from. This whole, don't worry, you always have time. You can always start. I love that. I love the positivity of it. I agree with it. However, there are repercussions to it. And you can't get back age. Sure, you can do all the things that you can to, not have, as much, degrade. We all degrade at some point, but there's going to be some point where you are going to look behind you and say, oh shit, what did I do with those years? And that's what got me to really anywhere right now is I had a huge span of time where I wasn't working the jobs that I loved. I wasn't, living the life I loved. I wasn't pursuing my dreams. And I just took myself, because I worked with a lot of old people, and I took myself into their shoes, because all they would tell me about is, I had the same dreams. And then I looked at what they did, and they didn't do any of the dreams, unfortunately. And they basically, they ended up not doing any of the things. Even when it came to retirement, they just weren't doers. And us as
Right.
humans, we sometimes fall into that we're just not doers. And the last thing I want is anybody to look back and ever say, what if I actually did, kick ass? What if I actually did, give it my all? Because the hardest question to ever ask is what if? I can fall on my face all day long, giving it 100%. At least I don't have to ask, what if at the end of all that. So I think, Matt, that's an awesome point. Use it as motivation, because all you have to do is just give it your all, and you're never going to be pissed about it.
Yeah.
So
There's
awesome.
a difference.
Awesome.
There's a difference between patience. Patience is very important. You do have to have patience,
Mhm.
but there's a difference between having patience and just not doing anything.
Yep.
Big difference.
100%. You have to be striving for your goals. So I think
Yeah.
that's an awesome point to end this call on. Awesome message. And Matt, for anybody that wants to reach out to you, what's the best way to get to you?
Instagram, just my name, Matt Berzicott.
All right. So find Matt Berzicott on Instagram, and you guys know where to find me. Just go ahead and reach out. You can click on my website, but please subscribe. And also, any questions that you have, just think about, why am I not getting to the next level? Whatever that question is, give that to us in the comments, and we will help you get there. But with that, Matt, thank you so much for your time. I love hopping on these calls, love talking about all the stuff that we can connect with, and that we can help people. But we'll go ahead and do our next episode on chemicals and anything on top of that. And we'll just help you guys get to your goals. All right, Matt, thanks again. And
Yep,
I'll
sounds
see you
good.
guys all soon. Peace.